Welcome to the lecture on modifiers. Chapter 20 talks about a few different kinds of modifying phrases and how important it is to keep the modifier close to the noun that it modifies. The sentence patterns that your book uses for practice are the most common patterns that result in errors. But I want to be clear that modifiers can go in other places besides just the very beginning of the sentence, like the examples that you've been working on. The first sentence here is from page 454 of your text. In the first sentence, the modifier is in yellow. All the modifiers in the textbook's example sentences are placed at the beginning of the sentence with a comma. But of course, we often speak and write sentences where the modifier is found after the subject, like in the second sentence here, or sometimes at the end of the sentence, as you see in the third sentence. Notice that the commas setting it off in sentence 2 are found both before and after the modifying phrase. And in the third sentence, the comma is actually optional. We don't need it there at all. You can listen as you read a sentence like that aloud and ask yourself whether you hear a pause, and if so, you could put a comma in, but it's really optional, up to the writer to decide if they think it's necessary. The same thing happens with modifiers that start with the word to. They can go at the beginning with a comma, or they can go at the end without a comma, as in these two sentences. There's a few other issues with modifiers I'd like to draw your attention to as well. Small modifiers can move around in the sentence even more than long phrases like these can. When speaking aloud, usually the listener can gather your meaning from your intonation and context, but in writing, the reader doesn't have those things to help, so we have to make the grammar of the sentence as clear as possible. So when you're dealing with a word like not, only, or almost as a modifier, then it's important to think about what that word or phrase modifies and try to place it as close to that word as possible. The word almost is our modifier. So the question is, do we want to put it after turkey? Do we want to put the word almost after took? Do we want to put it at the end of the sentence? After we almost purchased it? Take a moment and think about where you think the very best place to put that word almost is. In my opinion, taking a look at this sentence, I think the best place for almost is after the word took. The intention of the sentence seems to be that the turkey didn't quite take 15 hours, but it took nearly 15 hours, up to 15 hours. The number of hours is the point that is in question, I guess, is the best way to put it. If we put it here before took, the turkey almost took 15 hours to defrost. Most likely any, listener or reader would be able to figure out what we mean, but it's just not quite as precise. We're not saying it almost took. It's not whether or not it took an amount of time. It's whether or not it was 15 hours that we care about. Here's another example. What is the difference between, even in the 1800s, not all women were homemakers, and even in the 1800s, all women were not homemakers? If you've said that the first one indicates that some women were homemakers and some were not, whereas the second sentence indicates that no women were homemakers, then you're correct. So probably the intention of this sentence is for the modifier not to be put right here before the word all. One more example of this kind of thing with these short adverbs. Here we could put the word only either before chimp population, or we could put it before leaving, or we could put it before attacked. The bacteria only attacked the chimp population. The bacteria attacked only the chimp population. Or the bacteria attacked the chimp population, leaving only the apes completely healthy. Now, in the first option, only attacked, that seems to indicate that it didn't do anything else except attack. It only attacked. It didn't heal. It didn't, whatever else it could do, all the other options. But that may be true, but that's probably not the intention of the sentence. Instead, the intention probably is that the bacteria attacked only the chimp population, not any other population. Not the ape population, not the, gorilla population or what have you, only the chimp population. So that's probably the best place. If the bacteria attacked the chimps and the gorillas and the birds and the fish and left only the apes completely healthy, then we would put it there. So it's important to think about where those modifiers have to go. In this sentence, we have the word only again being used. They only saw each other during meals. But this word could mean two different things. They only saw each other during meals. Does it mean they were so busy that the only time that they could see each other was during meals? Or does it mean that they were so wrapped up in each other that they didn't see anything else during meals, they only saw each other? So we can see here that putting the word only in front of the word saw makes it unclear which of those two kinds of sentences we mean. It would be better to take the word only and put it here if you mean, oh, they were so in love, they saw only each other during meals. Or if you're talking about the busy couple, then we want to probably put it here. They saw each other only during meals or during meals only. Either place would be fine. That indicates not that they're super, super in love, but that they're just super busy and they only meet up at certain times of the day. All right, another kind of modifier issue that I want to talk about is the issue of split infinitives. You might have heard this term before. An infinitive is any verb that starts with the word to, like to think, to eat, to walk, to speak, to explode, or whatever. Splitting an infinitive is when you put a modifier in between the word to and the verb. So in this case, to avoid is our infinitive, and we put a modifier, if possible, in between those two words, to and avoid. So it splits the infinitive. Now, traditionally, this has been seen by grammarians and English professors and such sorts of people as very, very bad and always, always wrong. So I would say, more and more it's one of those grammar rules that is becoming a little bit obsolete. People don't pay as close of attention to it anymore. I would say if you know that you're writing for a very strict audience that would care about that sort of thing, then you should try to move that modifier either before the infinitive or after it. So in this case, we've moved the infinitive or the modifier all the way to the end of the sentence. The patient should try to avoid going up and downstairs if possible. You could put it here. The patient should try, if possible, to avoid going up and downstairs, whichever sounds best. But the point is, it doesn't come in between that infinitive verb. Now, unfortunately, there are situations where there's really no other option but to split the infinitive. Here's a good example of that, this first sentence. Several U.S. industries expect to more than triple their use of robots. There's really no other place you can put the words more than except right there. You can't say expect more than to triple. That's a little awkward. Expect to triple more than, obviously that doesn't work at all. You could say something like several U.S. industries expect to triple their use of robots and then some, or something like that. But it's really not that great of a revision. So in this case, I would say, because it's so difficult to try to move this, just leave it. Splitting an infinitive is not the worst thing ever in terms of grammar. people do it all the time. Obviously, there's a very famous split infinitive here from Star Trek, so it's been used before. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. Lucy posted warning signs to not only inform the public of the risks, but to also reduce her own liability. So here we have two split infinitives. To inform is one infinitive, and it's being split by the modifier not only. And to reduce is an infinitive being split by the word also. So the question to ask ourselves is, can we move those modifiers and not split the infinitive without making the sentence be too awkward? So let's try. Lucy posted warning signs not only to inform the public of the risks, but also to reduce her own liability. That seems to work, and it is not awkward, and it fixes the split infinitive problem. So that's probably a revision that I would go ahead and make on that sentence. Here's another sentence. More research is needed to effectively evaluate the risks posed by volcanoes in the Pacific Northwest. The infinitive here is to evaluate, and the modifier is the word effectively. So pause the video for just a moment. Ask yourself, can you move the word effectively to anywhere else in the sentence that would preserve the meaning and not sound too terribly awkward? All right, if you had some trouble doing that, that's good, because it's pretty difficult. This is a pretty difficult one. You could have said more research is needed to evaluate effectively the risks, but it is a little bit awkward. You could completely revise the sentence and say, if we want to evaluate the risks effectively, the risks of, let's see, I guess that doesn't really work either. Yeah, this one's hard. I would say if this were me and I were writing this sentence, I would just leave it there, because it's makes it, confusing and awkward. If you say evaluate the risks effectively posed by volcanoes, then that makes it confusing, like what is being posed by volcanoes, makes the sentence kind of awkward. Yeah, I think I would go ahead and leave that one there. I think it works best right where it is. All right. All right, again, pause the video and take a look at sentences 3 and 4 here. They don't have split infinitives. Instead, these are practice sentences for the earlier part of the lesson. In sentence 3, the word only is our modifier. See if you can find a better place in the sentence for it that's more precise. And in sentence 4, the word not is our modifier. So ask yourself, is it that they do not return, or is it something else that is not? Is there a better place in the sentence for that word? All right, in sentence number 3, the thing that is only, the thing that is being limited by this word, this modifier, is 40%. That's the thing that's not complete, that only should be referring to. So a better place for that word is right here, only 40%. Matthias had taken notes on only 40% of the material. It's not that he only took notes, as opposed like, oh, he only took notes, he should have, I don't know, rewritten the entire book, or, something, discussed it with a friend. Taking notes is not the thing that is incomplete. 40% is the thing that is incomplete. So that's where the word only should go. In the 4th sentence, it's not returning that they do not do. They do return. The thing that they do not do the thing that is not is the word all, probably. Not all salmon return. Some of them do, but not all of them. That's my guess as to the intention of this sentence. We could say They return to the precise stream where they were not spawned, but that seems unlikely. I think probably the best place in this sentence would be right here. Not all salmon return. Some of them do, but not all of them. All right, hopefully this makes sense. I know it's a little tedious to talk through sentence by sentence, but it is important to be very, very clear. You know, in a lot of these sentences, the reader can figure out what you mean, but when you start dealing with more complex topics, more complicated topics, the reader might be confused if the modifier is in the wrong place. So it's good to be able to evaluate that and make the right decision. All right, a few more examples. These are ones that are similar to your book, so you should be an expert on these ones by now. In the first sentence, upon entering the doctor's office, a skeleton caught my attention. If you were paying attention when you were reading your book and doing those exercises, then you should have noticed right away here that it's not the skeleton that's entering the doctor's office, right? The sentence seems to indicate that upon entering the doctor's office, a skeleton did something. But of course, the intention of the writer probably is that the I here was entering the doctor's office. So that's a misplaced modifier, just like the kind in your book. Same thing with these other two. Though only 16, it's not UCLA that's 16. It's probably Martha who is 16. So her name should be right here, not the word UCLA. And then, of course, this third one is the most amusing. When a young man, my mother enrolled me in tap dances. Probably your mother is not the person who was once a young man. It's rather you or the I, the speaker of the sentence. So each of those is one of those misplaced modifiers that your book talks about. Now, there's multiple ways to fix these kinds of misplaced modifiers. You can change the subject. So instead of saying the skeleton surprised me, you say I was surprised. Basically, whatever word comes right after this modifier, right after the comma, that has to be the thing that's being described. Or you can rewrite the whole modifier, this whole introductory phrase, so that it includes the word. When I entered the doctor's office. And then you can leave this part the same. A skeleton caught my attention. Because you've already stated who it was that entered the doctor's office. So both of those are options. All right, one more slide here for you to practice with. See if you can discover what is the misplaced modifier and how it should be fixed. Go ahead and pause the video and practice those for a couple minutes. Okay, the answers in the first sentence, while writing a first draft, whoever is writing the first draft needs to be the name that is coming right here. So you may not, etc., and finish the sentence that way. You may not always find that it is perfectly organized or something like that. Or another option would be to say, while you write a first draft, your paper might not be perfectly organized, and that works as well. And number two, the word which always has to describe the thing that comes right before. But in this sentence, the thesis creates imaginary boundaries for ideas, which are very helpful. It's not the ideas that are helpful, it's the boundaries that are helpful. So we have to find a way to revise this sentence so that that is clear. You could say something like, the thesis creates helpful imaginary boundaries for ideas. That would work. The thesis, let's see, the thesis creates imaginary boundaries for ideas, and these ideas can be very helpful. That's a little wordy, but it would work. It would be clear. It would fix the problem. So, and you may have come up with another option on your own that makes that clear, that it's the boundaries that are helpful, not the ideas. And then the third one is just like the examples in your book. To replace the gear mechanism, we need the word here of who is going to replace that gear mechanism. So probably you should attach a form to order the part by mail. Something like that would fix the sentence. Or you could say, there's a form attached to order a part so that you can replace the gear mechanism, or something along those lines would work as well. All right, hopefully this lecture has been helpful in expanding on the concepts in this chapter. Again, please let me know if you have any questions. This lecture continues in part 2.